That red residue in your water isn't just a really super annoying, it's a clear sign that your plumbing could be in serious trouble. The rust buildup that is often caused by high iron content or corroding pipes, it can affect not only the taste, the smell of the water, but also the health of your entire plumbing system. Now, if you ignore this, that red residue could lead to costly pipe replacements, stained appliances, stained clothing, even more compromised water quality. So how do you know how to fix it? What can you do before it's too late? Let's dive in and have a conversation about red residue in water and how you can fix it. So to begin with, that red residue, also some people consider it orange, it's because of the most natural element in the Earth's crust called iron. So when the water percolates through the earth, it sits in an aquifer hundreds of feet, sometimes thousands of feet, maybe 50 feet. It all depends on your city or your personal home. By the way, most people who are dealing with this are living on a private well. That means that you're one of, I don't know, about 10% to 15% of America's population that gets your own water from your own private well. So as you know, the water falls on the earth, percolates through the earth, through the grass, through the dirt, through the soil, through the clay, and it collects in an aquifer, which is bedrock underneath your house. Now, what's mixed with that bedrock is iron. Iron is the most common element in the Earth's crust. So that iron molecule obviously attaches to the water droplet just like a calcium ion would. Now you use a water softener to pop that calcium off the water droplet, but you're going to need to address that iron probably somewhat differently. Now, iron comes in a lot of different forms, meaning that there's ferrous and ferric iron, there's iron bacteria. So there's several different things you need to know about treating for it, but let's talk about why it's going to cause a problem. Well, unlike calcium, well, I guess in some cases, calcium can build up in the plumbing of the pipe and cause that pipe to actually get smaller, but iron definitely will, especially with galvanized plumbing. Galvanized plumbing loves iron and it plugs up really, really quick. So that's why it's really important to consider treating the iron right after the pressure tank. You can't really treat it before the pressure tank because any water pressure problems that filter causes will cause a problem with your pressure tank. Plus, most states outlaw putting anything between the pressure tank and the pump in the the pump that's in the earth for your house. Sometimes the pump is, especially in Florida or other warm areas, the pump is actually outside, and then there's a pipe sticking down into the ground drawing that water up. So most Department of Health eliminate putting anything between the pressure tank and that pump. So does that get clogged up? Yes, sometimes that does get clogged up. But it's usually after the pressure tank that we start having all those problems, especially if you have a galvanized or air atmospheric tank. That means if you go downstairs and your tank is steel and there's a pressure gauge on it, on the side of that steel tank, and it's usually galvanized, and you knock on it, ding, 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 and you can hear the air pocket on the top, and the well company has told you to add air to it all the time. Yes, those can get really plugged up with iron. Why is that? Because anything touching the water droplet, anytime air touches this, iron pops off. Yes, iron pops off. That's because oxygen is an oxidant. It actually pops that off. So that's why you'll see that in galvanized tanks. Now, when that water comes into your home, we have a problem, right? You have that red color. It's staining your toilet bowls. It stains your white clothing to be red. So there's a lot of different problems that it causes. You'll see the staining inside your laundry machine, and you're just like, oh my God, what's going on here? Well, you have to remember, it's everywhere that water touches. Your dishwasher, your laundry machine, your water heater. It goes all the way to your humidifier if you have one of those. It's going from the plumbing, from the pressure tank, throughout the entire home. to all your faucets. It's going to stain your tile. It's going to stain your shower stall, your glasses. It's going to stain the glass shower wall. So we've seen it just attack everything. Now here's the major problem that you can see is it's going to cause you to have to clean that. Now, the biggest product on the market is called Iron Out. Yes, you have to wear gloves, you have to wear a mask because it's highly toxic. Now, what's the problem with using that? Well, so many people use it thinking that it's okay, but guess what? What we found from septic companies is that they say time out. That's extremely bad to be flushed down the drain. And that's because when the water leaves the house, it goes into a septic tank. The septic tank is digesting, the bacteria there is digesting the solids that you just flushed down. That's the paper products and the other solids. So when you flush chemicals down the drain, what's going to happen to that digestive tract? You got it, it's going to get ruined. And then what happens when that digestive tract, gets ruined? Now that pump is going to pump solids out into the fingers. You have literally laterals, they call it. And on the bottom of those lateral pipes, there's little holes. Now, if the digestion didn't take place correctly in that septic tank, guess what? You're plugging up those holes in the septic field. And that's why septic companies sometimes may have to dig those out or use special systems to push air or use water and air to try to, and hot water for that matter, to flush those lines, or sometimes they have to be dug up. Now that becomes very expensive. So this is why we're trying to explain to you that if you leave this untreated at the pressure tank, then you're going to have problems further down the line. So many times I have clients, I don't want to waste the money on that. I've lived for this for years. Well, see, the thing is what they don't see is every single month, little money, dollars are coming out of their pocket, both in chemical costs, maybe replacing white clothing, maybe having to replace tile. So I like to try to explain to someone, let's take a look at your house holistically for 10 years. The average family is going to live in the house for about 7 years. So depending on how long you live there, you might want to take that into consideration. But if this is your forever home, or you just bought the house and you're struggling with it, you're pulling your hair out, you're like, oh my God, what do I do? Well, you got to take a look at the investment of an iron filter up front, because if you don't, let's just take a look at the tile in the bathroom. What's that going to cost to have a contractor come out, dig up all that tile, replace the tile with new tile, and then you're without a shower for all that time? Maybe you'll have to replace the faucet head. Maybe you're going to have to replace the bowl in the bowl too, the two bowls that are going to be in the master bath. Maybe you have to replace the toilet bowls. Maybe you have to replace the kitchen sink. Maybe you have to replace appliances like your laundry machine or your dishwasher. I mean, we do a lot of work with some of these home development companies, Costco, Lowe's, and what they say on average, a person doing it by themselves is going to spend $10,000 to replace their bathroom. If they have someone do it, it's $20,000. So now let's think about that. If you leave that untreated, what's going to happen in 10 years? That's right, it's probably going to need to get replaced. However, if we take the iron out of the water, guess what? It's not stained, it doesn't look bad, you're not using nasty chemicals, you're not possibly ruining your septic field, which can cost up to $35,000, $40,000 to replace. So a little bit of money up front to get rid of that iron, that iron that's attached to that water droplet, is going to save money in the long run. Now, how do you treat for it? Well, there's several different techniques to treat for it, but you're going to need a professional to come out there to actually test the type of iron that you have and then make a recommendation for you. Now, a lot of clients ask me, well, how do I know? I'm out in whatever, Timbuktu, what do I do? I've had people call me from all over the country, and it's like, here's what I'd like to look at. How long have they been in business? Do they have like 100 or more Google reviews? Did you read the Google reviews? Then the other thing is, are they going to put a guarantee behind it? I know that's hard. A lot of dealers are not going to put a guarantee on iron in water, but we need to be able to show you, you have tested water. Let's use an example in Barrington, Illinois. We have someone that has 2 parts per million of iron. Now, in general terms, we can apply a water softener that can take out 2 parts per million of iron. Good deal, right? What our experience was, we had to learn to test it thoroughly. We had to check for iron bacteria. Why? Iron bacteria feeds on that iron molecule. So now we cannot use an iron filter, which uses teeth to bite at the water and pull that out. We cannot use oxygen to oxidize that off, like in, I don't know, there's companies out there that use air pockets to be able to pass the water through and it helps oxidize that. Can't use that because oxygen or bacteria loves oxygen. So now that oxygen and the iron of its food source, and it gets worse. By the way, iron bacteria is like 10 times as bad for your plumbing system because it really plugs up that plumbing, which will then result in water pressure loss. By the way, if you live on a private well and you have red staining and your water pressure sucks, guess what? It's probably because you don't have an iron filter and it's plugging up all the plumbing pipes. So quick, you got to do something like right now. And I'll teach you about that in 1 second. So if you do have iron bacteria, we need to use an oxidant, and we can't use hydrogen peroxide. We cannot use air because those both are food sources. We could use ozone, and then we could use chlorine. So those are some of the oxidants we can use to help pop that iron droplet or iron molecule off that water droplet. Now, that's really important to understand. Now, let's move forward. Why would I want to use chlorine injection if I have low water pressure? Now, magic. What we learned is that in many cases, what we could do is turn off the carbon filter while we're there, inject chlorine into the house, chlorine and water, that is. There's a dilution that we do. And then we have the client let that sit for up to 12, sometimes 24 hours. So now we have the chlorine oxidizing the iron in the plumbing pipes. Now that can be a problem. It can cause plugs in your shower faucets, especially if there's growy faucets. Those are made in France that have little teeny orifices. It can actually cause faucets to get plugged up. But see, now that's, there's going to be a win and a loss. We tell people we're not liable should that happen, but we're happy to chlorinate your well. If it does happen, you can call us and we'll send a plumber out, but understand that's not on us because you or the people who lived there before you did not treat and take out the iron, so it's built up in the plumbing. All we can do is use chlorine to try to oxidize that out. But we've had huge success in improving the water pressure as a result of that. So that said, that might be able to help you if you've been having that issue. I've had a couple of shout outs from people who've asked me some of those questions about water pressure and iron. In any regard, if you want to learn more about water pressure, check out our link below. How do I fix the water pressure in my house? We're going to talk a little bit about that on that video. By the way, if you like this video or you know someone else that lives on a private well and they could benefit from this, or you have a family member that is dealing with iron, please share this video with them. Please press like and, of course, subscribe to the channel. We would be so grateful for that. Now, getting back to your iron issue, if you've got that iron issue and you have low water pressure, you can use a chlorine injection system to oxidize the iron, and we put it in a large water in a large holding tank, and we add chlorine to it. We add your water into it, and then it runs it into a special filter to take out the particles, and also carbon to take the chlorine back out of the water, so that what goes out to your house is chlorine-free water going to it. Now, if you don't have iron bacteria, yes, guess what? You can use oxygen, you can use hydrogen peroxide, you can use ozone, you could use chlorine, you can use a variety of different, you can use a regular iron filter. There's filter material called berm out there. It works for about 1 to 2 parts per million of iron. So you can do that. There's products on the market, by the way. If you also need a water softener, pro tip, check out the Eco Water water softeners because they are certified to go up to 10 parts per million of iron. Yes, how do they do that? They use cross-link resin, and then they have a special algorithm that actually tracks the water usages and then adds only the exact amount of salt needed during its regeneration cycle. So it will always keep, the ECR is an amazing filter, water softener. I'll tell you a little bit about that one. I had a client that was up in Wonder Lake. They needed an iron filter. They had iron bacteria, and they're like, they had about 4 parts per million of iron, and they're like, we don't want to spend so much money on a chlorine injection system and a water softener. What do you recommend? I said, let's invest a little bit more money in the water softener. It'll take out the 4 parts per million of iron, but you, Mr. Homeowner, you got to chlorinate the well every 3 months. If you do that, that means basically you're taking chlorine, dumping it down into the aquifer and trying and letting it sit. You have to circulate it. There's a whole process there. But you have to let that sit. And once you chlorinate the well, which means you don't use the water for about 24 to 48 hours, then you've actually oxidized all that iron and it falls to the bottom of the aquifer. And you also clean the plumbing pipes coming up into your house. Pro tip. If you have over 2 parts per million of iron, or you have 2 parts of an iron and iron bacteria, I highly recommend you chlorinate your well no matter what you own every year to maybe every 2 years. Why? Because your pump that's in the earth has these grooves in it that lets the water in. And guess what gets clogged up? All those grooves that allow the water in. So what we find is a lot of people who have those grooves, have a well pump, it gets clogged with that iron, so that chlorinating the well will actually help you drop the iron, clean out the plumbing pipe coming up from the aquifer into the home. It will clean out the pressure tank, and it will also clean out that pump to make sure that we're keeping it free of all that slime. Yes, why will that save you money? Think about it. If left untreated in 4, 5, 6, 7 years, who are you going to have out? You got it, the well company. They're going to have to drop and either replace the pump, or they're going to have to chlorinate the well with a super high dose of chlorine. You're going to have several workers there pulling that pump out. Sometimes they have to rip it out of the ground and then drop it down again. It becomes a really big problem. So that said, you might want to be able to chlorinate your well. I suggest that you chlorinate your well if you have iron bacteria and or you have over 4 parts per million of iron. Now, getting back to that story, the water softener that gentleman bought takes up to 10 parts per million of iron. And what was great is that it's sitting there cleaning itself every couple days, but it's only like using 2 pounds of salt for the water softener. So it's not like traditional water softeners that don't have 2 things, the algorithm, the upflow brine, 3 things, I'm sorry, and the exact salt dosing. Those other systems don't, other standard water softeners don't have that. The Eco Water System water softener does have that. So the customer is very happy, but guess what? After about 3 years, he calls me up. He's like, I'm getting really tired of chlorinating this well. I have some money. I'm ready to invest in it. So again, it goes back to you and what your budget can handle. But I do recommend if there's anything you can do, it's probably worth putting that money up front so that you can do less work in the future. I'm a big believer if you can free up my time, I'd rather go out and make money and then be able to pay for something so that I don't have to screw around with it like 24, 48 hours of not having to deal with something. So that said, that would be a great option for you as well. Now, those iron filters that you can look at, there's a variety of them on the market. We found some very good air injection systems that work really, really well. Hillenbrand makes one. Eco Water makes one. There's a few companies that actually make it. Again, if you don't have bacteria in the water. Yes, it's a little tricky to be able to determine if you have iron bacteria or not because it can come and go. So the best place to look for that iron bacteria, just so you know, is the back of your toilet. So you go to the toilet, take the reservoir off the back or the lid off the back. If you have an orange or red slime on the walls of that reservoir and you flush it and you feel it and it's goopy, that is iron bacteria. So even if it doesn't test positive right away, I'd be a little hesitant to move forward with an iron filter unless it involved ozone or chlorine. Ozone or chlorine. We have seen ozone systems work great because they kill the bacteria that's attached to there, and ozone is a great oxidant for that iron. So, in summary, if you have iron in your water especially over 2 parts per million, you are probably going to need to get an iron filter. You need to define what kind of iron it is. You probably need a pro. You need to be able to do a little research, look for the Google reviews, and ask for the guarantee. Because if a good professional company comes out, they should tell you how important it is to test the water and look through that toilet to see if there's that bacteria. Then be able to tell you that, listen, this is what's wrong with it. After we're done installing it, we're going to test it again to prove to you that it took it out. Now, pro tip, please do yourself a favor. Test them, ask them, what would ruin an iron filter? So you know, a leaky toilet would be the #1 reason why a iron filter can be ruined. See, it's your job. You are the head of your household. You own the private well. The EPA says you're like the Wild West, baby. We're not going to come knocking on your door, ask you how your water is. They just don't. But they do recommend that you learn enough to be dangerous. So now in that context, you want to make sure that this company is going to ask you those right questions, right? Are they going to check for iron bacteria? Did they test for iron? Do they know what kind of iron it is? Then are they going to be able to check your toilets to see if they're leaking? Because #1 reason why iron filters don't work, they're not plugged in. Believe it or not, that's the case. So when we go out there, an outlet blew or whatever. So that's one, but someone used it to put a drill in there or something like that. But then #2 is a leaky toilet. You cannot believe it. When you're on a well, you don't get a water bill. So since you don't get a water bill, you need to go check those toilets. Pro tip, you can go and get simple food coloring, put it in the reservoir behind the bowl, right? You can put it in there and see if it shows up in the bowl itself. In addition, that water level should be a thumbnail down, about 1 inch down from that overflow in there, because the bobber never gets that water to stop exactly correct. So you DIYers out there, I know you like to have a full toilet. People think, oh, it's going to help flush the solids down. No, you want to teach everybody in the house that we want to do a courtesy flush. We need that toilet so that there's about 1 inch from the top of that overflow. That's the standpipe in there. That's a pipe that actually sits in there, and so that if the bobber were to fail, it overflows and goes directly to your septic field. Now remember, one leaky toilet doing 2 gallons of water a minute, that's something like, I don't know, 2,000 gallons of water in a day. So that's way more than what your septic field can handle, but more importantly, that's way more than what an iron filter can take out. In one day, most iron filters can only filter about 500 to 1,000 gallons of water a day. Anything more than that, it's more than what it can handle for a family of, and so that's just a food for thought. By the way, side note, the average person uses about 50 gallons of water a day. So that should help you calculate how much water your family should use. That's why I do love filters and water softeners that absolutely come with a computer gallon counter so you can see it. I love ones that actually have apps so that it can alert you if you have a toilet leaking in the house, because that's your job. You're the water authority for your family. That said, we've now also, just as a summary, we've seen all the things that can cost you money. I mean, whether it's bad chemicals that you're using to clean it up, that go down into the septic field and ruin the septic field, to white clothing, white linens, those things get ruined by this iron. You have appliances that get ruined, you get dishes that get ruined, you have bathrooms that get ruined that could cost $20,000 to replace. There's all those appliances. I mean, what would appliances cost you? I mean, new dishwasher, new laundry machine, a new water heater. I mean, what are we talking there? 8, 10 grand? Again, if we can extend the life of those things, that helps you garner and understand the value of putting in an iron filter. Now, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. As you know, our phone number is 847-382-7800. You can reach us on the web at angelwater.com. Obviously, through comments, I do my best to respond to you as well. It is better to go to our website, fill out a form so we can contact you, but we do our best to be able to respond to any questions you have. As you know, my name is Drew, and I am here to serve you, hopefully so we can save money and make your family more healthy. Have a great day.